Welcome to Quest Givers in front of a live studio audience. Yes, we have actual live people in a dungeon somewhere in the Quest Givers universe. And this video is about Skullduggerous characters.
If you're looking for adventure, grab the modules each month to support the channel and play the campaign with your gaming group. You're sure to get hooked on adventure.
Make sure you head over to Quest Givers where we have our modules, and we're going to have our Kickstarter on September 1st, so look out for that. And Gareth, we're talking about Skullduggerous characters, right? NPCs and characters.
What is Skullduggery?
It's somebody
People are
who
looking it up.
Tricky and underhanded.
Okay, just like us.
So what would make a Skullduggerous character?
Well, a Skullduggerous character, to me, the way that I play them or create the NPCs, so I play them when you're playing like a rogue, thief, or something, depending on what game you're playing. But when you're creating them as NPCs, I always think of them as people or like things that have a duality. So there's two parts to them that usually are in contradiction. So you're playing two things at once. So like the like two different motivations would be the first thing. So I want to be your friend, but I'm going to take all your gold. That's why I'm being your friend. So that really is the basis of what I feel is a Skullduggerous character, is these duality. What sort of things do you do, Scotty?
I really, it's kind of an excuse to mess with the players and your and the characters if you're a player character in just kind of fun and mischievous ways. You know, you can have fun with it. You got to be careful, I think, when you're doing this kind of thing, that you don't derail the game, because you can get, I don't know, you can do it too much, and you can make the game not fun. You want to have enough of it to make the game fun, but not too much to make, get basically the players pissed off. Whether you're running these kind of characters or you're a character yourself running in a game, and who's a Skullduggerous type character.
Yeah, I've played a very similar character in a campaign before, and it was a lot of fun, but it was very difficult to do it sitting around a table with all the other players. So if you're trying to keep it from the players, and it's just going to be communications between you and, if you're passing notes back and forth, obviously players are going to wonder what's going on. So how would you go about not letting the players in on it?
I do something a little unorthodox at the table. I allow everyone to see what's going on. I don't necessarily try to keep, like, we have an evil character in my current group that I'm playing, and I don't keep that from the other players. They know it. The players know it. The characters have to find out what they find out, what they see. They can't act on anything they don't know. So I'll play scenes with whatever, his evil, deity and stuff in front of them. Like, I won't go in the other room and talk to them and all this stuff. I'll do it in front of them. They'll all see these scenes, but their characters can't act on any of this because they don't know it. So that's one way to do it. Another way could be to, if you want to do that kind of big reveal, it depends what you want to do with the character, I think. If you want to do a character that has a huge reveal, I've never been in a campaign like that, but people have just loved that when that happens. So they either hate it or they love it. It's like when like you thought the character was one thing, it reveals to be something else, and either it betrays them or it helps them or whatever. It wasn't what you thought. That can be a lot of fun in the game. So I think you have to decide kind of what route you want to go with it. Do you want to go more of a route like where I like what I do, because it's more like a TV show. You're seeing all the characters in action. You're seeing everything, even though you can't act on it. Or there's the kind of more secret route. So I think you first got to decide which route you're going to go with it.
I've done things where you remove the player from the table for a minute or so, because the other players know that there's something else going on. So you go and you speak in another room or something. But what I tend to do is, if a player says, I want to be, a shifty guy, we discuss it before and after the session while no one else is there. So by messenger or whatever. And that's how we then we'd say, well, at this point, when you meet this person, that's when you're going to do your thing. So you keep it to that one instance, because if you've got multiple things that are going to happen again, it's going to be problematic. But if there's like, you meet Bob in the room, that's when you're going to stab Bob, and that's when you reveal.
I love playing Skullduggerous characters. I'm pretty free range with it. So I usually give them a lot of freedom to just go with it. Of course, usually I have players that really do well with that. And so if they're really into it, I just let them go. And honestly, I've never really had a problem with it. Most of the time, it seems to, they seem to really just be grooving on it, and they make my job easy. Generally, if a person wants to play this, they're usually a really good role player.
Yes, that is true. Yeah, if you have a really good role player, it can be really fun. Really fun.
Yeah.
It can be dangerous when you allow a rules lawyer to be a character like that, though, because they may actually structure their character to a point where they're so good at what they do, they will achieve their ends and the whole party dies. That's not a good thing. So, there must be a way to kind of rein it in. Skullduggery is a fine art of subtlety. So as a GM, you should be very good at it, because as we talk about being very succinct, and you can use the subtlety of the succinctness to play Skullduggerous characters well. Because oftentimes there are two personalities. The personality they put to you as the player, that you as the GM play the facade of the character. And then there's their true personality behind, which is what they actually are. So you're presenting something in the front, and the players have to discover what the real personality is behind. So that's the difficulty, really, in creating and playing a Skullduggerous characters, not letting the cat out of the bag, but helping putting things in place for the characters to discover that this character is not what they seem.
And that is always so much fun in a game, when the characters are kind of starting to get those aha moments, like, wait a minute, and it can be really fun to lead the characters on. Like you could kind of do the reverse. Like they think this person's guilty of something, but they're not really. It's just circumstance that's, making them seem guilty. Or, on the other hand, they are guilty, and they're just pulling the wool over the player's eyes. So, you can handle it different ways in different games. Like in D&D, in some other games where you have spells that you can, like Zone of Truth and, detect, alignment and that kind of thing. It can become trickier to hide that intention, right? But there are ways you can do it. And I had a game where I had a doppelganger type character. He was pretending to be one of the player character's friends, right? And he would do stuff to them, and they would like, what? And then when they would go back, he would escape, and then when they would go back, they would confront the character who's like, I didn't do anything, blah, blah, blah. And he's literally telling the truth, because he didn't do anything, but they don't believe him. So you can have a lot of fun with that kind of stuff.
You're a fiend, man.
See how long you can string it on, see how long you can keep it going.
When it comes to things like spells, like you fear the spell of the Zone of Truth, if you're doing your job right, the players wouldn't suspect that. They wouldn't even think about using the Zone of Truth, because it needs to be plausible. So a really skilled, subterfugeable, Skullduggerousy character they must be able to project something where you wouldn't think that they're lying. But they always slip up. And you've got to control when that happens. So, their motivations is what's going to lead them to slip up. So when you've got two motivations, at some point they're going to clash. So, if you're being their friend so that you can steal their gold, when everyone's asleep and you're on watch and you're going to slink up to steal the gold and you step on a twig, then it's like, well, hang on a minute, why are your hands in my backpack? And then, so you got to have that response ready. I saw a weird creature go in there, and I just wanted to make sure it wasn't going to steal anything. I was protecting you, man. things like, not only the motivations but allegiances. So if you're inculcated with the Thieves Guild, that's where allegiances go. Like, are you aligned to the king, or are you aligned to the Thieves Guild, or are you aligned to both? This is going to run all kinds of weird gambits in terms of the politics and so on and so forth of what's happening. And then you get a Game of Thrones kind of scenario where you never know what's going on, who's going to stab who in the back, who's going to have what kind of dragon, and which dragon's going to ride which other dragon. Never makes any sense on that show.
Yeah. Well, like the character I was playing was a goblin rogue, and he was actually an assassin, but he had the appearance of being very childlike, and he knew enough, medicine that he basically acted almost as like a triage guy for the group. And so they saw him as very unintelligent. He was very childlike. He's very young, so they got to protect him. Where he's actually an experienced assassin, and his goal was to kill the people not in the party, but in the group that they were working for. It was the Harpers. So his target was all the Harpers. So every time they'd meet up with somebody, they'd leave. Then when they camped, he'd circle back and kill them, and then join back up at the party. And so it took them a while to figure out that their entire intelligence network was just being decimated, and they couldn't figure it out. And the only way we were able to do it was the DM actually allowed smartphones and stuff at the table, so it was all through text.
That's a good way to do it. Yeah. We have technology now where we didn't before.
We're a bit old school.
I know a lot of people who don't allow electronics at their table, but it was so much fun. The way they finally figured it out was while I'm texting, they're texting him as well, saying that, we're going to follow him and see what he's doing. And they busted me in the middle of an assassination attempt.
I had a lot of fun with a character who was a bard character, but they pretended to be a necromancer. So, but they were actually afraid of undead. Like they were actually terrified of undead, but through subterfuge and stuff, they could pretend to be a necromancer and this kind of thing. So, that can be fun. But like I say, if you're going to be that type of character in the group, don't derail the game with it. If you can have fun with it without derailing the game. Like I basically scared an NPC into like giving us more money than they could really afford, right? And so I was kind of a jerk character. So I forced the NPC, this small town, to pay us more money than they could really afford. And then one of the other characters asked for his share of the money, and as we were leaving town, he ran back and gave his share back to the town. And I was like, that is awesome. That is so cool, because although I'm playing this jerk character, I applaud that because I think that's great. He was playing his character the way he would play his, and I was playing mine the way I would play mine. And I never wanted to. I always helped the group. I never used the subterfuge to like, oh, they're all going to die, and then I'm going to take all the goods or whatever. That can really derail a game. So I would try not to do that, but you can have a lot of fun, in those middle spaces of the game, I think.
It's one of those things where, yes, play a Skullduggerous character, but don't be a dick.
Yes, exactly.
It's not like I have to be Skullduggerous at every single choice, and everything that they do, I must work against everything that they do. Now, Skullduggerous characters must work against the goals of others. That's like their whole jam. But they don't do it at every turn. They do it at important points is when they do it. Because otherwise...
They're going to do it smartly.
Correct. Because otherwise you're going to get caught a lot easier when you're doing it all the time. And also, as a player, you're going to be a dick. And that's not good, because you will die. And then you'll be a Skullduggerous character.
So I think this kind of helps, because I think like the doppelganger has always been one of the hardest monsters to ever run in a game. I don't know. I've always struggled to GM a game with doppelgangers and make them good. And I think this really helps with that.
I had one of the key things in Under the Tavern is that there is a gang of doppelgangers. And, you know, the first thing you encounter is the doppelganger in the entire game. It's like right there in the first scene. But you only find that out once you're on like level 2. So, you know, it's, you know, that again, it comes to that, how do you keep it away until you need to put it into place? And that's where a little bit of planning has to come in, I think. You know, it just acts normally until that point. I'm perfectly normal. Nothing going on here.
And we have in our Knights of Old, we have a doppelganger character, NPC, in that module. So it's pretty fun. You know, in our modules, do we have any Skullduggerous characters in our modules?
Well, yes. In fact, and his name is Doug Skullduggery. So, you know, although we are doing things like double crosses and that kind of stuff, which again is important in the Skullduggerous character, the character of Doug Skullduggery is a thief, and his whole plot is to try to get something from the players, or to get it before the players. But you'll find out when you play Thief, the module. So yeah, that very much the things we're talking about are built into that character. But you won't know what the nuances are unless you actually are playing the module. It's easy to say this character is Skullduggerous, but you won't know how or why. So yeah, I think it's something you don't want to have it all the time. Don't like have every single character in your plot is a Skullduggerous character. Really, they're a trickster. So if you know the hero's journey, or you follow our sort of how to run a campaign guide, the PDF, you know, there are trickster characters in there, and a trickster character is really Skullduggerous, and that's, you only have one of those per sort of arc. Don't have every single character be that.
I did want to say that we do have a cameo from Doug Skullduggery in Dark City, so the players will meet him at some point in the Dark City. So that's kind of a fun little, you know, thing that happens before the next module, Thieves. So yeah, that's a nice little drop there in the module.
Oh, we're always doing stuff like that. They hear about people and talk about people in libraries and so on in other modules, and then all of a sudden you meet these people. And they may not be what they were talked about. But anyway, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for the live audience who joined us as well, asked all their questions. And we will see you Friday next week in the next video.